we're all set to start in the next couple of minutes. So the excitement is high. It's good to meet old friends all over again at AISS. But if we settle down, we'll get started with day one. Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm quickly waiting for those of you that are all standing to find seats and settle down. For those of you who are standing outside, if we can have you all come in so you don't miss any of the action. Okay, good morning once again, esteemed audience. I'm Shreya Krishnan, and I'm going to be the host for the next couple of days. This is my fourth AISS, so I'm super excited to be here. I trust everyone's doing well and is looking forward to everything that's going to unfold over the next couple of days. Speaking on behalf of the DSCI team, I extend a very warm welcome to each one of you on the 18th edition of NASSCOM DSCI Annual Information Security Summit 2023, powered by Palo Alto and supported by the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. As a humble request, if you could all either put your phones on silent or switch them off, if that's the experience that you want to take away from the event. Without further ado, we'll get right in. So requesting for all of your attention as we dive in towards the first plenary session of the day, Cyber Resiliency of Enterprises and National Economies, real-time, managed, systematized, and governed. To deliver this session, it's my privilege to introduce you all to the esteemed panel of speakers. We have Major General Manjeet Singh, Joint Secretary, Cyber, National Security Council Secretariat. Anil Nama, CIO, Cloud 4C Services, Chetan Nandi, CIO, ED, IOSCL, and Kaushik Shivraman, Global Head Security Consulting and Research, CloudSec. And to moderate the session, let me call upon Tarun Kaura, Leader, Cyber Advisory, Risk Advisory, Deloitte India. May I now request you all to join us on stage, and please take it away.
Hello, check. Good morning, everybody. What a low energy. Good morning. More louder, I think. Good morning. Okay, cybersecurity professionals should have more energy than what I think. Again, a good morning. That's nice, that's nice. Okay, so heavy topic to start with, cyber resiliency in enterprise and public critical infrastructure. What I'll do is, on the show of hands, how many have you seen the recent movie in Netflix called Leaving the World Behind? Raise your hands. Don't be shy. It's okay, you can see Netflix during the work time. We all do it. So How many of you? Very few. So I will request that it's well timed actually. I don't know whether DSCI sponsored this launch of Netflix movie, but if you look at the movie, it actually brings a very subtle message that how a cyber warfare can bring the whole country down. And they've shown it in a very subtle manner. It's not like a very loud and an elaborate movie, but I think, when you see that, it gives you a messages that what will happen, for example, your navigation system is down. What will happen if the satellites are not able to communicate to the airplanes? What will happen if you're isolated, you've gone for a holiday, and you're isolated in that holiday home, and you don't even know what chaos is happening in the city? I mean, an amazing way to show what really can, something like that can happen. With that as, so go back and see, you need not download now. You can pay attention to the, to the panel, but go back and see. And I think they all say what they show in movies can really happen in next 10 years, correct? We've seen that. We saw Star Trek, then we saw the COVID. I just hope something like this should never happen to any of the nations that they've shown. With that, first, I will go to Major General Manjeet Singh. My first question is around the same theme. We have seen critical infrastructure, critical information. In fact, some of the private enterprises are also now part of the critical infrastructure, the private banks. And when there is a geopolitical crisis, cyber warfare has become the center, correct? There's no borders. You don't have to fly planes. You don't have to create an army to fight. And still, systematic damages can happen. What is your view in terms of our readiness as a nation to face something like this? And what are the procedures or precautions that we are taking between the enterprises and the government?
Good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me?
I think it's not on.
Good morning, everyone. I think there's too much of echo. Good morning, everyone. At the very outset, let me thank the DSCI for inviting us and giving us an opportunity to share our thoughts on a very important issue which pertains to the national and enterprise resilience, as also cybersecurity issues. Can you all hear me at the back comfortably? Thank you so much. So before we really go on to the specific issues, I would like to share with you certain initial thoughts with respect to our national cyberspace. We need to, it's well established now, we are all in this field, that we have a huge dependence on the cyberspace, be it our social fabric, our economy, or our national security. The cyberspace is moving our lives. It is touching our lives in every which way, whether it is in terms of transacting business, or it is in terms of communicating with each other, sharing data, carrying out businesses. So there is a complete dependence on the cyberspace as far as the individuals are concerned, the government is concerned, the businesses and the enterprises in the organizations are concerned. So having seen so much of a dependence where any threat to this kind of a harmonious cyberspace can really lend to situations of law and order, touching the social fabric of the country, destabilizing the national economy or the national security is something which we are all concerned about, and each one of us has to really contribute to that. The threat landscape, again, you are well aware, ranges from the individuals to the non-state actors and to the state actors. And when it gets the involvement of the state actors, that is something of a real concern. And that is where he has brought in the concept of cyber warfare into the whole thing. So we are actually in the midst of cyber warfare or cyber operations every single day. And therefore, we are not really waiting for a land operation, air operation, maritime operation, or space operation to happen. We are in the midst of cyber warfare or cyber operations every single day. And the cyberspace is today a contested battle space or a battlefield. And therefore, it is our duty to understand this. This must draw the attention of the governments, the private sector, the boards, the board of governors, the board of directors. They must have full attention onto this, because everyone has to contribute to this. The individuals, organizations, the enterprises, the government, everyone has got a role to play. And that is where I bring in the concept of whole of nation approach. We have equal roles and responsibility into safeguarding of this space, whether it is a critical infrastructure or a non-critical infrastructure. That is where we need to all get in. And at this point in time, learning from my military experience, I would like to bring in a concept of carrying out a appreciation. In military, we have something called carrying out appreciation of the situation. And in fact, in our staff college, there is a paper on military appreciation. There is a full paper on carrying out a military appreciation. I think we should adopt that. That's got a beautiful format, which has got major headings, wherein at the first you carry out a terrain analysis or the ground analysis. And thereafter you carry out the analysis about the enemy or the adversaries. And thereafter you have certain terms of reference for yourself that you have to operate within those bounds. It is not endless, it's not infinite. So there are bounds. And after having studied these aspects, then you come to the courses of options or the courses of action or the options. You work out various options that if this be so, then what are the options available to me to carry out my operations? And towards the end, then you make a plan based on this particular military appreciation, and then you act on it. I think this military appreciation should get into whether we are managing the cybersecurity of an organization in the government, or a PSU, or a private sector, or an enterprise. And at an individual level also, we should carry out a mental appreciation in our minds that who am I? What is my role? If I have got connected to internet or a cyberspace with my small little device, do I have some responsibilities or not? So I think I would like to give that as a concept for everyone, and I can take on the questions with respect to this particular military appreciation of our cyberspace. And since the question pertained particularly to the collaboration between the private sector, the enterprises, and the government, there is a lot which can be done together, starting from the public-private partnerships to the threat intel sharing. Then we can have the capacity building together, regulation. We should be able to understand each other's position. If we are, let's say, making a regulation, what kind of regulation it should be? How will the industry receive that regulation? Is the industry prepared to implement that regulation? So it has to be a collaborative process in every which way. And there are a whole lot of other mechanisms. Even the international collaboration is also part of the public-private partnership. So there are lots. We'll talk more and more. I think I've spoken enough. Let me give it back to him. Thank you.
But very well said on this military appreciation part, correct? We would definitely want to know more. And I'm sure a lot of people heard this for the first time, and they would, I mean, during the break, you know, you should, and I will definitely sit with you to understand this and see if this can be implemented in certain areas that when we meet our enterprises and within our own organization. Moving to Liton, I mean, you know, you're managing one of the IT infrastructure of one of the largest publicly state-owned, you know, an oil manufacturing organization. You know, when we look at this as a critical infrastructure, we even believe that there is a lot of IT which is there in the data center, but you have a lot of operation technologies also, which now you're, you know, getting all the traditional systems, your entire plant automation also now coming into IT. What do you see this as a challenge, you know, because OT has a lot of traditional, you know, the infrastructure, the applications, Do you think that they're integrating well and cybersecurity has been extended all the way to OT too?
Thank you. First of all, very happy to be here. This is a very, very august gathering. Good morning to all of you from Indian Oil, the energy of India. Yeah, the topic is very, very pertinent in today's world and in India per se. Operational technology is the core of our operations. Because, this operational technology, through this, we manage our entire ecosystems, from refining to petroleum productions, then transportation, pipeline transportation, and reaching the entire energy solution to every nook and corner of this country. Actually, we are, apart from an organization, profitable organization, we are also the extended arm of the government. So this is our responsibility to relentlessly, frictionlessly reach the products to our entire country. And let's say, our scale ranges from supplying, LPG cylinders, 2.5 million cylinders every day, and providing LPG Indian gas solutions to 130 million plus customers in India. Our retail outlet, our entire retail system that caters to 30 million footfall of customer every day in our retail outlet, fully automated. The entire systems can be only managed once entire operation is, managed by operational technologies. It ranges from entire range of ICS, industrial control systems, starting from you have got heavily DCS in our refinery operations, SCADA operations in our pipeline transportation, and of course the PLCs in our terminal automation system from where tank trucks are loaded and products reach to our retail outlet, and from there, all customers are catered to. So this is very, very important for Indian Oil. And yes, the OT earlier used to be air-gapped, as we all know, but no longer OT can be isolated because it's a business requirement. Because that data caters to us, and analyzing the data, a lot of decisions are taken, and there are various vendors who monitors from outside. So no longer, OT can be kept isolated. So cybersecurity is very, very important in this aspect for managing that IT-OT interface. So recommended best practices would be we also follow. First is creating a defensible architecture. Defensible architecture is something that you continuously build, operate. So we often listen about SDLC, right? Software Development Lifecycle. This is a security on entirety. Security has to be every day's game. It's not one day morning walk. It's every day's game. How do you continuously build your security landscape architecture, and every day having, security threat hunting, you apply your security threat model, and continuously improve upon that. So this gives a very, very little risk of whatever systems are there if you continuously assess. As a part of that, what is recommended practice is segmented operation. That some of the things you have to very, very segment it, that who can access what, where the data residing. So that segmentation is very, very important. And then let's say for this, if the data is required by somebody, how we make this one-way data through various technologies like data diode and other things. If it is a two-way, how you ensure that there is a system which is a demilitarized zone where vendors or others requests can come, and those can actually be operated real-time, near real-time, or batch process through a different middleware architecture, so that your OT is not directly touched upon. And another is the ICS plan, incident response plan. This is completely different than IT, because OT is something the plan has to be, because it involves various controllable devices, controllers, actuators, sensors, so many things, very intelligent things are there. These are Internet of Things, right? So those are Internet of Things in the ecosystem, in the refinery or pipeline. And second I will say about your total observability, right? The entire OT, that visibility, observability has to, unless that is there, that what is the status, health, how that particular things or gadgets or sensors or equipments or PLCs are getting accessed. So that entire visibility, that gives you enough room for very effective monitoring and the needed actions to reduce the risk. Third point, I will say the managed, remote access. Because that is what we have seen in many cases recent past. The access was not properly managed, right? So that A3, that is A3 is access control, authorization, and authentication. This A3 piece is very, very important because, nowadays the business and the technologies and security, this should go hand in hand. In, business side, when you see A3, because new age customer requests a lot of, new age and kind of experience, because they want to have that, entire digital system on A3. That A3 is your, anytime using from anywhere access, anytime access and using any device. So this, to cater to this A3, the other A3, which is access control, authorization, authentication, is very much required, especially on OT. Okay. Next point I will say about risk-based vulnerabilities. We should prioritize that, what kind of vulnerability, and that will be, of course, very, very user case specific, that what are the, out of various vulnerabilities, what are the most prominent vulnerabilities we should manage, we should prioritize. So that is very, very important. And of course, the DR drill to assess the preparedness, because OT DR drill is something very, very different. And see, we manage our entire IT systems through DID and DIW approach, that is defense in depth and defense in width, which is called CCCTD approach. And a similar thing is also required for OT. And so this particular thing is very important, because unless, the IT system, the interface is managed, we will be actually risking the OT side. Last point I will mention about the CCMP, that is Cyber Crisis Management Plan. That is to be in line to see, now OT and IT are not different. We have to think that entire landscape, whether it is you are managing in on-prem, entire system, because our industry, my organization has been designated as CII, because all our critical infrastructure, nowadays no infrastructure, none with information, that's why CIE has become a CII. So our refineries and pipelines are designated CII. So this is a responsibility to make it secured, not only secured on physical aspect and operationally, and cyber also. So that is how Indian Oil maintains from the all holistic maintenance about IT and OT. In fact, we are coming up with OT SOC also, because we have got IT SOC which manage that. But to manage this OT and IT interface, that is very, very required nowadays, because there are different threat landscape. It's a sophistication. We know that there are two groups of people in this world. One is the good actors like all of us sitting over here, and the malicious actors. The same kind of technology is available to us, both of us. We should be prepared in such a way that we can overcome their all malicious intention. Thank you. Thank you very much.
No, that was very well said. In fact, very elaborate, and few things that I got is segmentation, correct, and how you actually are, and being CII, obviously it's a huge responsibility for you also to relook at what kind of solutions you look at, what kind of architecture you bring in. Yes, it has to be a continuous improvement. Moving to Mr. Anil, you actually provide, the cloud services for a lot of organizations. And when you and I had conversed, you said that almost 30 plus banks you're hosting. It's a responsibility, right? Because they share their data, their applications, and you're going to host for them. And if one breach happens, it cannot impact only you, but it just impacts a lot of customers that you're hosting. What are the challenges that you're seeing, from your side as a service provider, how you manage the security and bring resilience to your entire architecture or the services that you're providing to your customers? Can we have the mic on, please?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very relevant question. First of all, let me thank DSCI for organizing such a session. See, from a service provider side, this story is slightly different. Am I audible?
Yeah, okay.
So the story is quite different. Let's take a simple transaction. Let's say I want to eat some food. I go to a Swiggy or a Zomato website. I select the restaurant. I order the food. Immediately, the restaurant pages changes from a Swiggy to maybe a Paytm or somebody else. And from there, the money transaction comes in. and then I can trace my food back. All of this is disparate systems. That means one system belongs to Swiggy, another system belongs to a Paytm, a third system belongs to a bank. In between, there are facilitators like UPI and all those people put together. So the major change which has happened in the service provider is, earlier everything was a island or a private cloud. Now there is a democratization of an IT, which means one system of one company has to talk to another, and that too over the net. There are no leased circuits here. And that opens a new set of challenges. For a very simple example, post-COVID, everybody became hybrid. And post-COVID, we have seen a spike in ransomware attacks. Why? Because those poor laptops were supposed to be in our LAN, protected by a proxy, protected by a firewall, under watchful eyes where we had MAC controls. And now that you are logging in from your home in your own ISP, your own laptop becomes suddenly vulnerable because that machine was never hardened like a server. And therefore somebody enters it, does a lateral, does privilege escalations, and then goes inside our systems. We have also seen that because such back office systems, such as core banking, such as ERP, such as your supply chain, logistics, they were traditionally back office systems. They were never made for internet facing. And now that you put under a Swiggy or a Amazon or somebody these tracking systems online, even the slightest of the misconfiguration leads to a very large potential risk. So this is the pressure on the service providers. When you look at a data center, it will host a hyperscale also, it will host a bank also, it will host a payment gateway also, it will host an ISP also. All of them basically interconnect inside a data center. And that's where a transaction carries out. So the onus is on us. Typically, when you see the government of India, they have been very proactive. Initially, the MIT came out with standards such as Government Community Cloud, which allowed files till secret level of Government of India to be kept in a public-private partnerships. Recently, we have seen the upgrade of CERT, where even if somebody is scanning IPs, public IPs, we can report them. And last but not the least, as Sir touched, Manjeet sir, the critical infrastructure is being looked after at differently. So what have we been doing as overall service providers? So as part of service providers, we have been augmenting our security. So initial stacks are now augmented. For example, it's no longer just reacting to a threat. There is also your data taken by ransomware in the dark net. So just like we get a vulnerability scanner to scan our systems, these days you have got bots which can scan the dark web to find out whether some organization's files are there or not. And you would be surprised that few of our customers that when we did that scanning, you were able to harvest username passwords being sold there. So it's no longer within your boundary. You also have to keep a watch beyond the boundary. And in that particular aspect, we are looking very, very favorably at the latest DPR Act which has come in. While it may put curbs on us, but it also allows us officially to take down our data beyond the reaches of a customer's network. That means it gives us legislation to request and say, whatever data that you are hosting does not belong to you, and therefore, Mr. ISP, you have to stop sharing the data. And that is how we can stop the spreading of the data. The second aspect that is now happening is the integration of NOC and SOC. So while till 27001 it was segregation of duties, SOC was separate, NOC was separate. But now that the SOC has become a cyber defense center, these threats need to be mitigated in real time. If you have a misconfiguration, if you have to patch it, if you have to isolate a system, it has to be done then and there. It cannot be a SOC consulting, informing a NOC consultant, and then working on it. So these workflows are becoming real time. The impact on service providers, we have joined hands. We analyzed these SIEM feeds today, the threat intels that you call. We found all of them come with an IP abuse threat. And they come with a rating 0 to 100%. So what we are all trying to do, in conjunction with the government agencies is to put perimeter firewalls and put 90 and 100% of bad IPs, which are command and control abused IPs, as part of filtration itself from entering the data center. That's from an IP perspective. Similarly, when you look at misconfigurations, we have started to carry out scans. And in fact, we now have got few honeypot systems of Government of India which are kept there to analyze the traffic and the kind of threat which is coming to the specific DC. So it's very, very contextually aware. It is not a threat intel coming from the world and then saying, yeah, you could have this. It's that DC or that location's contextually aware threat that are coming, and we in turn inform the customers saying that you have got these potential issues, could you address them in real time? The third thing that is happening in the service providers, and that is where DSCI is also helping us, sir, that is training. Because all of this, suddenly NOC taking up a SOC function, they won't understand the security tickets. They are used to a CPU 100%, I mean some server not working. These are new kind of threats. So there's a whole lot of training being carried out. People are getting trained so that they understand that when they receive such information, how do they react? Last but not the least, the legislation also empowers us to quarantine systems. So for a simple example, if I talk about ControlS or a Cloud4C, we have come out with an acceptable use policy because our platforms could also be used for launching attacks on other parties. So it's both ways. So when you come to this way, we have come out with an acceptable use policy to say that if these 3, 4, 5 things as per CERT mandate, if you are doing this, if we find that you are doing this, then we are liable to stop your services. So one, it is making safer from an ingress side. Second, it is making safer from an egress side. Third, the knowledge of the technical folks is increasing to be more contextually aware with this rich feed that is coming in. And the last, the legislation and the digitization is supporting all this thrust to make it a safer place to work.
Mike. Okay, thanks. That was well said. And can you get the volume a little bit lower, please? Yeah, thanks. So I totally understand that, when you have such a lot of information and data and application hosted, as you rightly said, correct, it's not only your responsibility, it's a joint responsibility. It can never be only a service provider. It is also your enterprises and the customers who actually subscribe to your services. They also have to look at the hygiene of the cybersecurity, their best practices. And I'm glad that you brought in that how government is actually also putting equal regulations and the governance to check on how the data is being shared and how intelligence is being shared. Moving to the intelligence side of things, Kaushik, your organization provides the curated intelligence for a lot of us and enterprises to take an informed decision. How do you see this going forward? Do you think that intelligence can also be a problem when you have so much of intelligence and a lot of enterprises don't know what to do with it because it's so overwhelming? And how they take the decisions, how you actually curate and give them a very precise information in terms of, okay, this is the problem that we are seeing somewhere else, this is the action that you should be taken. What is your view about the overall threat intelligence side of things and how you feel it will evolve with AI and other areas and make it more, I would say, precise rather than, overwhelming?
Cool. Gentlemen, ladies, I hope you can hear me. All right, Tarun, just to answer your question, right? I mean, I 100% agree in terms of the information overload that is there. And that is, I'm sure 95% of the people in the room will agree that it's not a lack of information, it's just excess information which is a problem and not being able to effectively process and handle it, right? So just to break this down into two components, right? Let me look at it from a user perspective, a security team's perspective, and from a solution provider's perspective. So from a user perspective, I'll speak more about the operational aspects of threat intelligence because that's what I understand best and I hope there's some value to that. Um, the first thing from a user standpoint is defining exactly what your threat intelligence requirements are, right? So bringing that down, documenting that, creating a threat intelligence requirements document becomes one of the key starting steps to a good threat intelligence program or following a good threat intelligence mandate, right? So what do you do in terms of, say, setting up a document for threat intelligence, right? That means you need to be able to gather your intel requirements, that is your organization's risk thresholds, and your industry risk thresholds and your regional requirements, right? These are components, and just to make sure that you have the document right, these have to be in the form of questions, right? Very key specific questions which have a black and white answer. Do I have visibility into this? Do I have visibility into my devices that have been compromised? Do I have visibility into credentials that are exposed? Do I have visibility into sensitive data? And all of that is going to determine how you go about gathering a solution for these requirements. Then you're obviously evaluating a spectrum of solutions. How do you determine which solution is the best for you? I can never give you 100% assurance that one solution is going to be the end all for everything. It's a spectrum of solutions that you'll need. But from the threat intelligence perspective, some of the key components that you would need to look at is does the solution have a large spectrum of coverage and a large depth of coverage, right? These are two components that need to be looked at. Two, can it handle a large volume of data, process a large volume of data, and give you contextualized information which is actionable? When I mean actionable, it has to be obviously as near real time as possible. So once a solution is able to kind of fix all of these, right, then you start saying, okay, is the visibility the solution giving me answering all of my threat intelligence requirements in the document, right? And that's how you start with the process of what your threat intelligence mandate is. Now, and from a from a solution provider standpoint, I had the opportunity of talking to General Manjeet just before we started, and there's one key thing he said: every day is new, and it's a new challenge every day, right? And that's, I'm sure 100% of you resonate with that. So there's like General Manjeet, I've had the privilege of serving in the army as well, and there's one very key note that says the only easy day was yesterday. And that is something that resonates with all of us here, I'm 100% sure, right? So while I was listening, I was just making down a few notes, so please don't mind if I refer to some of these, right? A solution should basically be able to consistently and constantly assess and address, and this is from a threat intelligence perspective, assess and address emerging vectors, emerging TTPs, right? And that again brings back to a conversation I had with Mr. Nandi a few days ago in a very different context. But the issue was the bad actor TTPs are constantly evolving, right? Today you have a solution in place, tomorrow they found a way to circumvent that, right? So this is something that is constantly evolving, and this is something that a solution needs to be constantly taking into account and trying to keep up, right? Otherwise you get redundant very soon. So what are the key factors that a threat intelligence solution should be looking at? The first thing is that we have a lot of indicators of compromise, a lot of talk about indicators of compromise when it comes to security solutions, right? Because this is dependent on a pre-existing signature database, and you're comparing or you're using heuristics. But what becomes more relevant from a threat intelligence? I mean, the word intelligence means that you need to have information in an actionable form before a risk becomes a threat for you, right? So let's look at some of the key attack vectors that have been addressing, that the industry has been facing over the last 1 year, right? And I'm sure a lot of you would have come across all of this. So how many of you, just to kind of have a quick show of hands, have come across the Move It or the Axelion FTA 0-day? Anybody, just a throw of hands. I'm sure it's, yeah, come on, it can't be just two of you. So, these are file transfer applications which had reached, which had a 0-day, and because of the vast number of users that it had, it was a massive, high impact 0-day. And I think that's what Mr. Anil as well as Tarun were talking about, right? The number of 0-days that are emerging, it becomes extremely relevant to be aware of what these vectors are, two, what is the workaround, and how organizations should be proactively protecting themselves, right? That is something a solution should really be able to provide for a user, right? And especially when it comes to critical infrastructure and national level mandates, this becomes extremely relevant. The second thing, which is one of the greatest, highest used vectors in all cyber attacks over the last 1 year have been stealer malware logs, right? Because here what is happening is users, especially post-COVID, I'm sure all of us are aware, post-COVID, there are a lot of BYOD devices. Employees have been allowed to use their own devices to access organization infrastructure, right? Obviously, there's a certain set of controls in place, but an organization can only have so much control over what somebody does on their personal device, and that becomes a major issue as well, right? With the, they download a cracked version of an application. We came across a place where an employee's child had downloaded a cracked version of FIFA, right? And that had it came laced with a malware, and those credentials were compromised, and the actors were able to use those credentials to gain access to the infrastructure. It removes one layer of security that you've so painstakingly put in place, right? So having visibility over these exposed credentials, while you can't have so much supervision on what a user does on their personal device, you can constantly monitor for these. The third attack vector that we have seen over the last year, which has been, significant in a lot of breaches, are open buckets, and this could be, and mostly open cloud buckets, right? So, and especially, and this adds on to the next place where Mr. Anil was also talking about, and in terms of a supply chain, right? So the open buckets need not necessarily belong to you. Any dependency that you have, vendor dependency that you have, these guys also are using cloud services, and a lot of times, not necessarily, especially if they don't have the budgets or anything for it, the focus need not necessarily be on security. So they're trying to provide you a service, and inadvertently somebody exposes a bucket in which they're processing information for you. That becomes a massive vector, and that has been, right? So these three components, like 0 days based on, legacy applications or mass use applications, stealer logs, and, the delivery of stealer logs has become extremely unique, right? Because we have started seeing YouTube videos, right? YouTube videos which are created using a lot of these Gen AI tools that are coming up, and people are being, when they're watching it, they're being redirected, or there are drive-by downloads from these videos as well, right? That's how stealer malware is also getting delivered. The next vector that I've seen is API platforms or code sharing platforms, where your developers or dependency developers are inadvertently exposing API key secret pairs, credentials. This again becomes a vector, and this has been a vector that has been abused. And I'm talking in terms of priority, logs, 0 days, and these kind of API platforms. And the last component that I wanted to touch upon, which has been one of the key vectors that has been causing a lot of damage to, and this is at a national level, sir, at a critical infrastructure level, at an enterprise organization level, is something as simple as fake domains, right? Fake domains is a problem that everybody has come across, except the perspective with which we see it is this impersonating me, right? But typically, most solution providers were looking at, okay, does it sound similar? The most we talk about are typo-squatted domains, right? There's a slight change in the E, I, but constantly evolving tactics, right? so people realize, the bad actors realize, and they evolve. They realize that they're being picked up on that. They start using different ways of redirecting people to those fake domains without necessarily having anything similar in the domain name, right? Or sometimes, they start redirecting you from SMSs. How many of you, just a quick show of hands, how many of you have received a message at any point of time saying, there is a part-time job offer, you can earn up to 3,000 to 5,000? Oh, yes, all right, yes, sir. Yes, sir. 100%, sir. So, Mr. Nandi was just saying that that's literally all of us, right? Now, from this, we started, right, from this SMS that you get, I mean, it's usually WhatsApp message, if I'm not wrong, right? From this WhatsApp message, you get, okay, you just have to like a few videos, and then you kind of go ahead from there, and then you get paid, and then you get transferred to a Telegram handle that is conversing with you. So we did a whole investigation into this, right? And this is where identifying fake domains for your organization becomes so relevant, because while we were looking at it, what happened was it was a completely different name, but on that same infrastructure, they were hosting, 600 other domains. All of these were impersonating pages, right? And you look at so we termed it webworm. So basically what happened here was there are 6,000 organizations across the world, across geographies, right? This is not just India. This is India, this is Australia, this is Europe, this is the US. Everywhere organizations were getting impersonated, and who were the end users were the citizens, right? Who were kind of falling prey to this. They were basically going to this, they were getting returns, initial returns, and then they were eventually getting, railroaded at the end when they've invested a massive amount of money into this, right? I'm sure some of you must have just tried it as an experiment as well, got initial returns, but people have lost 70 lakhs, crores, $50,000, right? These are the kind of complaints and numbers that we've looked at, right? So
Kaushik,
this is a massive attack vector,
Kaushik.
even from a...
Yeah, if you can summarize in the
Yeah.
interest of time. I know you have a lot, but
Yeah,
people
so
will definitely...
just 10 seconds to wind up. So basically, these are the various things that a solution provider basically needs to be looking at, constantly evolving tactics to make sure that we are trying to keep up or stay ahead of the attackers. So that's kind of what I wanted to highlight.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, it was great and elaborate, but, we have so much time. I know we can speak about, especially the cyber security issues through the day, but he's available, correct? And guys, please reach out to him, and he has a lot to share, a lot of experiences. I'll just do a quick rapid fire now, okay? So I'll start with Mr. Anil. Since we have 2 minutes, I don't think we'll have time for questions, but the panelists and everyone is available. You can have it over a tea or a coffee, or good questions that they can do. But let me just ask last question to all of you. So let's say, Anil, you see a massive cyber attack, okay? And you have 30 seconds to call up your boss. What will you tell him? In one line.
Massive cyber attacks, we typically shut down the networks, isolate the network first.
Sorry?
Isolate the network first.
Okay. General Manjit Singh. So let's say similarly, same question. You have 30 seconds, one line, to call up your boss and say, and you see massive cyber warfare being happening. What will you tell him?
I think we'll have to get our crisis management plan into action. Okay. And that's what is the best way out to handle that particular situation.
Okay.
Yeah, I already mentioned about our preparedness, the continuous assessment. I told,
No, you have 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So you just have to call up your boss and say something. What will you tell him?
No, that's what I told. There is a CCMP already. Every company has to have a CCMP. It's not that should not be taken aback that what is happening. So that preparedness is always important. It's not that I will not be attacked. How I respond to that is very, very important.
Yes.
This response is important, right? It is not whether we are. If we are, how we respond to that. So
Very
that's
nice.
called, in one sentence I can tell, using appropriate TTPs, how do we protect our PPTs? What is PPTs? Not PowerPoint presentation, people, process, and technology.
Awesome. Awesome. That's Kaushik, one line, okay?
Sorry about that. No, but it would be the BCP, right? Whatever is absolutely essentially critical that has to stay up, stays up, and we keep fighting, and the rest of it gets shut down. Yeah, that's primarily, I mean, if I had to react to it, that's what we do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think we are just top of the hour, 12 seconds to go. In the interest of time, I would want to summarize, but I think it was a great session. Esteemed panelists, different backgrounds, different experiences, and the challenges are the same. Maybe the solutions and the approach are different, which we heard actually from each one of them. It would be great that if you can spend some more time with them and understand their experiences, because they bring a plethora of experience, especially in the cybersecurity area, and you know, right from a threat intelligence provider to the largest, you know, oil organization to one of the, you know, very esteemed government ran institute, and then a cloud service provider. What else we can get in such kind of you know, a discussion and panel. It was my honor to have you with me, and thank you very much for your time, and a very patient audience. I know you have a lot of questions, but we have to really respect the time. Thank you very much for being patient with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, panel. I'm going to request Tarun to hand over tokens of our appreciation to all of our panelists. As he does that, let me also quickly summarize on what that touched upon. Hope for the best, but always be prepared for the worst. Handling complexities of both OT and IT infrastructure, addressing vulnerabilities across operational technology, and ensuring comprehensive OT security management. We've had dependencies on cyberspace, but the economy of the national security, it's also moving through our lives. And of course, speaking about the emergence of major data protection service providers and how the landscape is changing in that context, and to ensure that they're now augmenting security in this regard, with DSCI's training, support, organizations learning really how to combat such situations, and different solutions and thoughts that are emerging and bringing a lot to the cybersecurity ecosystem. Thank you once again. That was our plenary this morning. And with that, can we have a huge round of applause for our panelists?